I think I understand a lot of the confusion. And Mr. Roy, you tell me if I'm wrong in anything I say, because, it's really regrettable, but you correctly stated in your testimony that all this started back in the 2020 election when you had then President-elect Biden and Vice President Harris talking about how they didn't trust how the vaccines were developed. That's the first step. Well, you don't trust in how these are developed through Operation Warp Speed. And then you have the COVID guidance flip-flops on, do you wear a mask, do you not? Do you wear two masks, do you not? You have, how did the CDC set policies with, where are the studies at? If you want to follow the science, let's look at those studies. You've got the reported influence of the teachers unions on the CDC guidances. And that just happened when they said you don't have to have a mask mandate in schools, and now you do. We still don't know the origins of COVID, do we? As members of Congress, we don't have the hearings to hear that. And then you have the latest with the flip-flop from the FDA and the CDC on the boosters. And they say do it, and now there's different guidance. But, what tops it all off is the vaccine mandate. And you are telling private employers that if you have 100 employers or more, you have to have them vaccinated or they don't have a job. And then you have your healthcare workers in your hospital systems. Your healthcare workers have to be vaccinated. I understand it. I'm a pharmacist, for God's sakes. I took the vaccine. I tell people we didn't cut corners. We cut red tape. Do the vaccine. But when you force them to do that, but you don't, you have over 200,000 people coming across the southern border illegally every month, and they are not, and I'm on Homeland too, so I know this is fact. They are not COVID tested, and they're not mandated to have that vaccine. And you wonder why Americans are hesitant? Well, I'll tell you, there's your sign. Does this sound like a mitigation strategy to you when that's based on science? And also there's being monoclonal antibodies that are going to be withheld from certain states, and we don't know why. There's no shortage in the supply from the manufacturers, but they negated not to ask that question to the manufacturers. And now there's several states that we don't have the supply that we need. And you tell me that's not political? There's a problem there. So if you would expound on that, and I'm in a rural district, and you don't think this is going to influence the healthcare workers and the employees that were already in short supply, our patients are not going to be taken care of. And I would like to, I'd ask unanimous consent to place into the hearing record a September 13th, 2021 Washington Post op-ed entitled, "In My Community, Biden's Vaccine Mandates Could Put More Lives at Risk." But if you could answer that, sir, about mitigation strategy and things like that, I could go into a whole lot more as far as natural immunity and things they should be doing. But you tell me what's wrong with anything I just said or what we need to correct.
Well, Ms. Harshbarger, you raised a lot of points. Let me try to, in the time we have, to focus on one or two. I think that, many of you in Congress are former or current business owners. And what business owner, what employer wants their workers to die of COVID or to become seriously ill of COVID? Zero. So this idea that somehow employers are the obstacle in getting their workers vaccinated is absolutely not the case. Every employer wants their workers to show up to work healthy and happy. That's in the absolute economic and human interest of every employer. So why don't we actually engage employers and learn from employers about the strategies they've succeeded with or failed with at getting their workers vaccinated? That seems to me a much better approach than what we're describing here, for all the reasons that we described. Now, I think that's such an important. We all want everyone to be protected from COVID-19. And the other piece I would bring up is something I alluded to in my last remarks, which is people who've recovered from COVID, right? This is an important thing to track and to monitor. People who've recovered from COVID have a very compelling form of immunity. Generally speaking, obviously people who are immunocompromised or people who are elderly whose immune systems may not be as robust, there are always asterisks and things to take into account. But broadly speaking, recovering from COVID is a form of immunity more powerful in many cases than mRNA or other vaccines. So we should be taking that into account in our strategy and in our policies.
Absolutely. Antibody testing should be one of the things available to American public and natural immunity, but we're not discussing that. So I know I'm out of time and I yield back.